What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Do You Have a Moment? I am your host, Stephen Williams, and today I have one question, and that is, do you have a moment to talk about Red versus Blue? Now, Red vs. Blue was an online series created by Bernie Burns, and it was a series that was basically called a machinima, which was where you use a video game and use the maps and the worlds and everything inside the video game to basically create your own story and your own characters. And when he first started this series, it was supposed to just be like a one-off thing that him and his friends did just for fun, where it was just like going to be maybe 10 episodes. But after seeing how much people actually really liked the characters and actually really thought it was a hilarious, sitcom, basically, they decided to just keep making more. Bernie has talked about many times that, in the first 5 seasons of the show, it was just one of those things where he was like, yeah, he wants to keep going, but, people might get tired of it. But as long as people kept watching, he kept making more and more episodes. And the thing that made this show so well and just how amazing it was the characters and the writing. Because when you're filming a show that's inside of a video game, you have limitations. And in Halo's case, the fact that the characters are all wearing spacesuits, you don't really have facial emotions or anything like that, so you have to play off of their actual personalities and the writing. And the way that the characters in Red vs. Blue were set up was that each of them, they had a very just like straightforward one personality trait kind of to them. On the blue side, you had Church, who was like the jerk leader. You had Tucker, who was the man boy. You had Caboose, who was the, cliche stupid one. On the red side, you had Sarge, who was the hardcore military guy. You had Griff, who was the lazy one. You had Simmons, who was the kiss-ass to Sarge. And you had Donut, who was the flamboyant one. And Lopez, the Spanish-speaking robot. So it was just the way those characters were able to play off of each other with the way that Bernie wrote the series. And I will say, Bernie is actually probably one of the best writers that I've ever seen. I obviously watched Red vs. Blue from the very beginning. I'm actually wearing a shirt that I got last year at RTX, which was their company's convention that they throw every year, because it was the 20th anniversary of Red vs. Blue. 20 years. It came out in 2003, and last year was 2023, and it was just crazy to think that it's still around. Well, kind of, sort of. We'll get to that at the end of the show. But the thing about the series was, as it kept going, Bernie was just, having fun with it now. He was just, throwing in plot points, throwing all these crazy things that he just could find out that he could use the Halo games to make, like the multiplayer maps, where he's like, oh, I could do this, and I could do this. And again, the voice cast for the series was what made the characters who they are. People fell in love with these characters. Everyone, if you watch the series, there's not a single person that goes, man, that Caboose character, I hate him. Everyone loves Caboose because he's just the lovable idiot.
Command? Oh no, they never have good news. Did somebody die? Was it my mom? Is she dead? Or my dad? Did my dad die again? Oh no.
What is this? I don't...
You see? He's yours now. No takebacks.
Is it my brother? Was my brother killed? That's it, isn't it? My brother's dead!
What? No, nothing like that.
Oh, good. Because I don't even have a brother. How sad would it be to not have a brother and to lose a brother all in the same day?
Voiced greatly by Joel Heyman. And the show went on at the very beginning for 5 seasons, and it took place only in a couple places in the Halo franchise, which was the Blood Gulch map. So they were called the Blood Gulch Chronicles those first 5 seasons. They went to a couple other maps and stuff like that, and they even transitioned from Halo 1 into Halo 2 halfway through the series. And they used the change of the game to kind of, push the story a little bit. They do this really weird thing. I won't get into plot or details because I really want you guys to actually check it out for yourself. But they just do it in very creative ways. When you have limitations like that, it shows just how creative you can be. And Bernie Burns was just so phenomenal with how creative he could be using the Halo games to make this series. I mean, after you're watching it for a good chunk of time, you almost forget that it's still made inside of a video game. It wasn't just animated on its own. I mean, you still have the limitations. Like I said, the characters, when they talk, all they do is bob their heads up and down. And they actually make jokes in the show about that, where it's I don't know, from this distance, all it just looks like is their heads are bobbing up and down. Well, that's kind of boring to look at. It's
well, maybe all of this is happening inside of a movie.
Oh, please. Who the fuck would watch that movie? All we ever do is stand around and talk.
So it was a great series just on that. But of course, like Bernie said, he was focused more on the comedy, and the story was kind of just on the back burner. It wasn't very important to the beginning of the series. But after the show became so popular to the point where a whole company was built out of it, Rooster Teeth Productions, Bernie decided, he announced that episode 100 was going to be the last episode of Red vs. Blue, the Blood Gulch Chronicles. And everyone at first was like, you can't end this series. Like, it's so good. It's so good. But clearly it was like, I don't think he's ending it. I think he's just ending what we know as Red vs. Blue at the moment. And sure enough, after the last episode aired, episode 100 at the end of season 5, a trailer came out for a season 6 basically, but it was called Red vs. Blue Reconstruction, and the trailer for it was nothing like what Red vs. Blue had been. It was dark, it had mystery, it was like very interesting. It was just like, what is this? So the idea that people were having was like, okay, maybe it's still like in the same universe, but we're leaving behind the characters that we know for the Blood Gulch Chronicles and moving on to a new set of characters. But when season 6 came out, we got introduced to a couple new characters, and it seemed like it was going a different direction until suddenly they do bring back those other characters. Like, little at a time, they sprinkle them back in. And what made this season work so much better was the introduction of the character Agent Washington, who was a freelancer, but he was like your straight-on military, do things by the book kind of guy, like, yes, sir. And so to have him now slowly recruiting all of the Reds and Blues who have now been shipped off to other places than Blood Gulch made it just so much better with the writing, because he was the straight man now. He was the level-headed guy now interacting with all these out there personalities.
You're that guy that went nuts, right? I didn't do anything. My AI lost control of itself. Right. It just happened to do it while it was inside your head. Right.
We have a lot in common, Agent Washington.
No, we don't. And don't ever say that again.
And this is where the series actually changed from being mostly comedy first with story second, to where Bernie decided he wanted to tell story first. And so story became the priority, but he still kept all the comedic elements in there. The characters from the original series, the original 5 seasons, they still joked. They still had their one personality trait that would bounce off of each other. They were just so well done. Church and Caboose just going back and forth. And the other thing that this series was greatly known for is running jokes. Like, my gosh, they could run a joke forever and find new interesting ways to make a twist on the joke so it doesn't get tired and old. Like Church, for example, one of the funniest things that's about him, that's just a weird quirk of his, is his aim sucks as a soldier. And so every single time he tries to shoot something, like with his sniper rifle, like, he misses, which leads to this great hilarious moment in season 6 when they're trying to sneak into a facility with Agent Washington.
Let me just... Now! Hey, can I get a little help? I'm out of bullets. Thanks.
Like, just priceless. Like, that is just such good comedy. But in season 6, it also did another big thing about the storytelling, which is it changed how you look at a certain character. Again, I won't get into plot details here because there's a twist in season 6 that just blows everything out of the water. Like, after watching the first 5 seasons of knowing these characters, like, season 6 just does this crazy thing. But what was great about Bernie's writing is, like, he didn't, since the first 5 seasons were just comedy with a little bit of weird story thrown in there, he didn't just, like, take that and throw it away and start fresh over here. He now was using these seasons to take little bits and pieces that he sprinkled into the original series that didn't really make sense and tie it all together into a good, perfect narrative. And he did it so well. He explained things from those original series that did seem sitcom-y and just like out there, almost like soap opera-y, where it's just like so extreme, but then he tied it into reality in this season going forward, where it felt more grounded. It felt more like it was a situation going on in the military and all of this weird conspiracy and bizarre stuff, but it was just so well written. And so yeah, from season 6 onwards, Red vs. Blue turned into this phenomenal storytelling that was driven by the characters. And again, in season 6, they moved from Halo 2 onto Halo 3 to use as the game thing. And of course, Halo 3 introduced a new feature in the game series, which was called Forge, which allowed you to edit and customize maps with like objects and stuff like that. And that just allowed them to have a lot more fun making the show, because now they can move stuff, they could change stuff, they could put weapons here, they could put tanks here, they could put boxes, they could build a fort, they could do all this different stuff. So they basically now had a scene builder like inside the game, and they were able to use it to the maximum capacity of it. But you have to keep in mind, they were still limited to only using maps that existed in the game franchise for online multiplayer. And the way they took advantage of those maps, they used almost every map from Halo 3 to make these seasons coming up here. And they used elements like, so the end of, I'll say this as a plot point, but it's not like a big one. At the end of episode 100, season 5, there's a Pelican ship that flies away and it supposedly explodes, but you don't know if it does or not. And in season 6, you find out that it actually crashed somewhere else. And that Pelican, it wasn't added there like by Bernie and his, people making the show. It was just on one of the maps, and Bernie said, hey, we just had it blow up at the end of episode 100. Let's use this map where there's a crashed Pelican and pretend like that's the Pelican that was at the end of that. Like, he was able to find those little 80 bits and pieces in each of the maps and use them for his storytelling. It was so well done. And it was only going to get better from that point on. With the characters and just how they bounced off of each other. I know I keep saying that over and over again, but that is really what the core is, because the fact that you, again, can't see the characters' faces, it's all about the writing and all about the acting and just how they interact with each other. The fact that Bernie found a way to make you understand if a character was sad or angry or upset or jealous or blushing or stuff like that without ever showing a character's face, just through the writing and the emotions of the voice actors, is phenomenal. So going forward after season 6, like, it was wondering what they were going to do with it, and season 6 through season 10 basically became what was known as the Freelancer saga, or Project Freelancer. And that's because Project Freelancer was a main story plot, where it was basically this group of people during the war against Covenant aliens, because yes, they do tie this in to basically be taking place in the Halo universe, even though it's not officially in the Halo universe, but it is in the Halo universe, but it's not, but it is. It's funny how they do it. And this organization, Project Freelancer, was trying to come up with a way to help humanity by creating a super soldier program of their own, kind of like how the Master Chief from Halo was. And it was called Project Freelancer. And the director, the leader of Project Freelancer, was just running these simulations and running these soldiers, like making them go on these hardcore missions and all this stuff, and just create this complex universe, this world. Like, Bernie created this world, and this where you now know things. You now know how the universe works. You now know how this military works. You know why these characters are here. And you learn more about that. And it's actually fun. I said, you know why these characters are here, because that's actually one of the longest running things in Red vs. Blue. The very first episode, the first line spoken is between Griff and Simmons, and they're standing on top of the base, and they go,
"Hey, yeah? You ever wonder why we're here? It's one of life's great mysteries, isn't it? Why are we here? I mean, are we the product of some cosmic coincidence, or is there really a God watching everything? I don't know, man, but it keeps me up at night."
What? I mean, why are we out here, in this canyon?
Yeah.
That quote, because it was the first quote of the show, comes up a lot throughout the series. And they actually take it where it was started as just a comedic joke from the original episode 1, and they actually turn it into heartfelt messaging going forward.
Let me ask you two a question. You ever wonder why we're here?
It does seem to be one of life's great mysteries.
Like, we chose to be here. That's why we're here. It doesn't matter why you're here, it's that you're here. And it's crazy, again, how you take just a joke and turn it into an actual heartfelt, meaningful thing. And talking about heartfelt and meaningful, going forward, Red vs. Blue has some of the most emotional moments I have ever seen in, like, an online video franchise. It has these quotes, it has these character moments, it has these sad moments where it's like watching people like watch Red vs. Blue for the first time when they get to these moments and literally seeing them break down into tears. It's like, it's crazy how a show that's just made in the Halo games can do that to a group of people. But hold on, I gotta look at my notes here a little bit too, because I have so much written down. Look at all this, because I'm just trying to cover so much here when it comes to just how amazing this series is. So with the Project Freelancer stuff, it was a 5-season story arc, basically building around, again, the characters we knew, but introducing new characters and even giving us flashbacks to Project Freelancer. And this is actually where the show and the franchise actually got so much crazier, because of someone named Monty Oum coming to work for the company Rooster Teeth. And Monty Oum was brought in because he was doing a lot of animation work, like full body motion capture animation work, just on his videos that he was making. Like he had I think one where it was like Samus Aran from Metroid games fighting against Master Chief. And they were like martial art, like fighting, stuff like that, and he did it all himself. And so they wanted to bring him in to basically add a new element to Red vs. Blue. So they would still use the Halo games to do a lot of the scenes and stuff like that. But now with Monty Oum starting in Season 8, they were allowed to do full-blown animation fight scenes. And still using like the elements of Halo, like the same maps and the same stuff, but he would build it into a 3D modeling system and then model over it so that it still looks like you're in the same place, but you're now re-animating the characters. Monty Oum brought that was peak Red vs. Blue once Monty Oum got in there. And the season 9 and season 10 of the Freelancer saga, we get to see so many more things because we're seeing flashbacks of what happened during Project Freelancer and the characters and the things they went through. And he fully animated those scenes. Those scenes, none of them were done in any of the maps on Halo. They were all done himself. Well, they were done in the maps on Halo, but those maps were brought into their own rigging and 3D animation program that he just used on his own. And the storytelling was still just great. But then with this, the crazy thing is that with the Freelancer agents is they did do face reveals for the first time in the series. And that's like where you see a lot of the Freelancers. You see Agent York, you see Agent North and South, you see Agent Carolina, you see their faces. And, you know, obviously it's not like super movie level production, but it's pretty passable, you know, like, for the way they look. And there was one thing, though, that was very interesting is when they were doing face reveals, is they kept to a certain standard where they will never show the faces of the main cast. You will never see the faces of Caboose, of Church, of Sarge, of Griff, of Simmons, of Donut. You will never see their faces. Like, they do that on purpose because that's just how you know the characters, so they don't want to ruin it by... You have your own idea of what the character looks like underneath that mask. They didn't want to add it in there to like ruin what you thought they looked like. And I thought that was just a great idea. And so even to this day, we don't know what any of these characters look like under their armor, but we know them because of their armor colors. You know, Caboose is blue, Tucker is teal, Sarge is red, Griff is orange, Simmons is maroon, Donut is pink. Like, and that's all you need to know these characters. And that's, again, using the story writing just to build the characters when you have very little to go off of just how they look. Man, I could gush about Red vs. Blue forever and ever and ever. And so what happened is at the end of season 10, that was basically the end of Bernie's story. He wanted to wrap up the Project Freelancer story and even wrap up the character that he voices, which is Church. He basically said that the stories that he was telling were from the perspective of Church. So by the end of that story, it was like, okay, Church's story, you know, we're going to move on from it. So I'm not going to be a part of writing the series anymore, but I'm going to pass it on to another director, another writer. And he passed it on to Miles Luna, another employee of Rooster Teeth. And Miles decided, I'm going to do my own trilogy in the Red vs. Blue series, taking place after the Project Freelancer stuff. And I remember in an interview, Bernie said Miles came to him with an idea, with a breakdown of the 3 seasons that he wanted to make, and he pushed it over to him. And he said, this is where I want the 3rd season that I'm going to make to end, and this is how I want it to end. And Bernie said, when he read it, he went, yes, absolutely. And so he let Miles make what was going to be known as the Chorus trilogy, because it takes place on the planet of Chorus. Basically, the Reds and Blues, the same characters we know, crash on the planet Chorus and get caught in like this civil war that's going on the planet. And This is where the series gets really deep and really emotional and really character driven, specifically around the character of Tucker, the man boy, the guy who up to this point was always just cracking jokes and, talking about picking up women and, making, genitalia jokes and, very immature kind of kid. He grows in this trilogy where he actually has to learn to be a leader. He learns to step up, to make choices, but then he also feels doubt because those choices lead to death and people getting hurt and all that kind of stuff. And he has to grow himself to get through this. And it's a great trilogy. It's a great arc. It's actually my favorite 3 seasons of Red vs. Blue is the Chorus trilogy. The thing about season 13 and the end of the Chorus trilogy is this is where it basically felt like the series was over. It ended in such a way where it's like that would be the perfect ending to this entire franchise. And Bernie always said the way he wrote the seasons, like season 5 and season 8 and season 10, and now Miles with season 13, is they always wrote the series with jumping off points. Because they didn't want people to feel like they had to keep going with the series. Like, if you felt that was a good ending for you, then take it. Like, and I'm like, that, I actually really admire that. Because the way he compares it is like he didn't want to end up like The Simpsons or Family Guy, where it's just like you're just running it into the ground over and over again and you're just doing the same thing. And it's just, yeah. So he wanted to give these jumping off points. And to this day, most fans of Red vs. Blue decided together collectively that, yeah, season 13 is the official definitive end of the series. Obviously, because it was a popular series for them, it didn't stop there. Season 14 actually was an anthology season where they just let a lot of directors come in and make different episodes that were focused on different characters in the same universe and didn't focus on the main cast at all because they wanted to let the ending of season 13 sit. But then season 15 brought the characters that we knew back. And then from here, the series kind of fell apart because like each season was having like a new director, and so their ideas were going different directions and stuff like that. I just recently rewatched all the seasons of Red vs. Blue again, and I will say, rewatching it, it's not as bad as I remember seasons 15 through 18. Well, I'll say 15 through 17. We'll get to 18. But, the comedy's still there, and there's still like really great character moments in these seasons. But the overarching story, when all the seasons before it were about military operations and conspiracies and civil wars and people fighting for what they believe in, these seasons went into weird territory like artificial intelligent gods and time travel and just like really, really weird stuff. And a lot of people kind of fell off after that. We're just like, yeah, this is going a weird direction. Again, season 17 was kind of another jumping off point. It was an ending. Like if you wanted to end the series there, you could. But they eventually went to an 18th season, which was called Red vs. Blue 0. This one, again, Bernie at this point had actually left the company Rooster Teeth. He sold the company and he actually moved to Europe. So Red vs. Blue was just kind of on, whoever wanted to pick it up and just play with it. Basically, toys in a sandbox. And they made this new series, which didn't focus on the original cast. It was a new cast, and it was like, that's fine. That's been done before, so that's cool too. But it was only 8 episodes long. It was fully animated, so it wasn't even done in Halo. And the full animation looked good, but the problem is those 8 episodes, it's like you have to get a lot of character in within those 8 episodes. And did they do that? And it's like, no, they didn't. Instead, they focused more on spectacle than story and character development. So it was just not good. It was not a good season. And ever since then, there hasn't been any Red vs. Blue made. But again, those later seasons don't actually hurt what already existed. That's the beauty of it. The fact that the fans are just like, yeah, just if I introduce someone new to this series, I say watch seasons 1 through 13 and just end it there. And everyone will be like, yeah, that's the way to do it. The series, the heartfelt moments, like they're just so well done. The emotional moments, the ending of season 13 is just so perfect. I know I don't want to spoil anything in case anyone watching this wants to go watch it, and I will definitely suggest, tell you, go watch Red vs. Blue. I know 13 seasons can seem a little intimidating, but keep in mind this is an online series, so episodes are anywhere from 8 to 15 minutes. So a full season's like an hour and a half to 2 hours. So yeah, you can punch out the entire series in less than a week. But yeah, it's the series is just so good, and there's still a lot of quotes from Red vs. Blue that stick with me to this day that Bernie wrote. So there's one in season 8 where Church says, a good love is a lot like a great memory. When it's there and you know it's there, but it could just be out of reach. It could be all you ever think about. You could focus on it, try to force it, but the more you do, the more you seem to push it away. But if you stand still and you're patient, maybe, just maybe, it'll come to you. I love that quote so much. Like, comparing love to a good memory. Like, and just like, yeah, if you're trying to remember, like, oh, it's like right on the edge of your mind and you're trying to remember it, but you keep trying to reach for it and it makes you forget it more. But if you just like leave it alone, and then later in the day you'll be like, that's what it was. Like, it was a well done quote. And then the big one of the big ones, again, without context, it might not mean anything, but with context, once you watch the series, it will, is there's always a story about some brave hero sacrificing himself to save the day. And when he does, the good guys win, the survivors all cheer, and everybody lives happily ever after, but the hero never gets to see that ending. They'll never know if the day was really saved. They'll never know if their sacrifice actually made a difference. In the end, they just have to have faith. And then he does end the quote with, ain't that a bitch? But it's God, some of the quotes, again, the writing of Red vs. Blue is so phenomenally done. Bernie Burns and Miles Luna did such a good job building these characters, building these quotes, building this universe, using the limitations of Halo. And again, with the Halo maps, I'm just gonna like splurge here. Like in season 6, they use almost every Halo map, but they use them in different ways. I don't look at those maps anymore when I play the Master Chief Collection as those maps. I look at them as, oh, that's Project Freelancer. Oh, that's the storage place in Project Freelancer. Oh, that's where they sent Church to after Blood Gulch. Oh, that's where they sent the Reds and Caboose to after Blood Gulch. It's like, you see the maps in so many different ways now because they made story around these maps for Red vs. Blue that wasn't there for Halo. And again, I could just go on and on and on and on, but I don't think I missed anything here too. Like, the series is just so good. If you haven't watched the series, please go check it out. I know the first 5 seasons can kind of be hard to get through because they are just comedy over story, so it's just a lot of like slapstick and just like, like insulting each other and, repeating of jokes, but, in different ways. But once you get to season 6, it gets so good. And I've been seeing a lot of people online on YouTube just discovering Red vs. Blue for the first time. And I've enjoyed actually watching them watch it. Yes, react videos. I know people don't like those, but it's interesting watching someone experience something that you experienced like 12 years ago and seeing them experience it for the first time. When they get to that twist and they're like, what? Or they get to the emotional moment and they're literally tearing up and crying, or, when something happens or there's a quote or something is said and they're just like, wow, that's deep, that's emotional. And the fact that an online series that just started as a bunch of goofy friends hanging out together, making a goofy show, could turn into something as big as Red vs. Blue, it's phenomenal. And I wanted to save this because at RTX last year, after having not had Red vs. Blue for a while, they showed a season for season 19, the final season of Red vs. Blue, and Bernie Burns is actually coming back to write this final season to finish the series. And it was supposed to come out in fall 2023, but as everyone watching this knows, it's 2024 now, and we actually haven't heard anything. Hopefully it gets made, but again, if it doesn't, at least we still have the 13 seasons that we have that make a phenomenal story, phenomenal characters, and just... This show got me through some really tough times when I was really depressed, and I hope that if any of you guys watch it, it can bring you the same joy it brought me. So anyways, guys, appreciate you guys watching this episode of, this episode of Red vs. Blue. This episode of Do You Have a Moment? Red vs. Blue, 20th anniversary. Go check out the show. You can find it at roosterteeth.com. You can watch the whole series there for free. Just check it out. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Your